Can you tell me a little bit about like you, who you are, kind of your background and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Mairin O'Brien. I grew up in Cleveland, so Ohio native. I was a swimmer for OSU for 4 years. I graduated in May. I graduated with a bachelor's of science. I majored in health and rehab sciences with a minor in integrative approaches to health and wellness. And I'm currently in nursing school right now. I'm getting my master's. So I graduate next December with my RN and then I move on to the post licensure part. So I'm planning on specializing in family nurse practicing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much
And
about
that's,
me.
I love that. I love that. My dad's in medicine, so I get a lot of understanding of that. So obviously you said you go to Ohio State, you're from Cleveland, you obviously in athletics at Ohio State. I know that you're a follower of Christ. I'm kind of wondering what role did your faith play in all those things?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up Catholic, grew up in the faith, like always had church integrated into my life, but it was never really a true relationship until I had gotten to college. My parents did a really good job of building that foundation when I was young. Like we went to church every week and then I went to Catholic school too up until like 7th grade. So even when I was in high school, they still like made it a priority and made sure that like my identity just wasn't in swimming. It was in like who I was as a person. Swimming was just something that I did. I had a big adjustment to college, definitely. I didn't really grow into my faith probably until like my junior year, kind of sophomore. But yeah, I don't know. I can like go into detail, but it was like my freshman year was definitely a big adjustment. It was like a total identity crisis. I went from swimming like less than 10 hours a week to college. You do doubles, you do all the weightlifting, like it's your whole life. And that was not something that I was used to. And my teammates were the same way. Like it was their whole like college athletics, like that's your main identifier and like that's who you are as a person. It's the first thing people ask about you. And so it was something that I wasn't used to. So it caused me to have a really big identity crisis, and I was seeking like all that validation and like coaches and my performance, and I became someone that I just didn't recognize. I didn't end up like having a good season either. So, and I got really sick. I ended up getting Lyme disease, which is really random, but I uh, just was totally not like I didn't have a relationship with the Lord whatsoever. And I think I was just so angry and I felt like He owed me everything. Like my dad and I would get in these fights. He'd call me. I lived right across the street from Newman Center, and he would just be like, go sit and just go pray. Like, go sit with the Lord for 20 minutes, like even 10. And I was just like, no, like I don't like he hasn't given me all these things, so why should I give him that? Like it was such an arrogant mindset, honestly. And it really wasn't until spring semester that I had met Jack Sampson, who's like my brother now practically. He invited me to cross sports, which is like the student athlete Bible study at Ohio State. He would show up at my apartment every Sunday and be like, I'm here to take you to church. Like, let's go. And he just was so patient and sat with me. And it was that kind of community that I was really longing for at Ohio State. And he got me connected with Tom and Julie, who run cross sports, and like it was just that it became that family that I just needed so badly, and they kind of really got me reconnected with my faith. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So what was that like getting reconnected with your faith? Obviously, OSU is not, I would say, an easy environment to be a Christian in, but kind of what was that journey like from that point forward?
For sure. I feel like my sophomore year was still kind of very lukewarm in my faith. Like I was going to church and cross sports regularly, but I wasn't like acting on it. I wasn't in my Bible or in the Word. So I definitely didn't really get super serious about it until my junior year. And it wasn't something I really shared with my teammates either. I wasn't like ashamed of it, but it just like never came up. So like I just never brought it up. And so I ended up having again like another disappointing season swimming wise, and but I had built a lot of momentum, so I was just really excited. And going into my junior year, like I had a teammate that really came in as a freshman, and she was so firm in her faith, and it really helped me grow and pushed me to grow in my faith. And I just kind of made that commitment to just like become bold and commit myself for the Lord, and just able to dive deeper into that, having like an actual sustaining relationship with Him.
Man, I feel I'm not trying to put any pressure on you.
I don't know, it just built momentum from there. Yeah.
So I'm curious because obviously last year they had the national title and the whole football revival, and that would have been your senior year, if I'm
Mm.
right. So how did that kind of, because you're young in your faith, you're starting to lock in. How did that revival and that culture of like bold faith kind of influence that?
It really kind of just gave me more confidence that like I was like, okay, well, if all of these guys, like obviously swimming is such a different platform than football, but still, it's like all those guys would show up to cross sports too, and it was just a really like they kind of give you confidence to just build off of that and become more bold in your faith because you saw like the impact it obviously had. And then I feel like just Columbus alone, like the football guys kind of got it rolling, but like so many people just were on fire for the Lord just on campus. Like it was such a different vibe than I'd felt any other like before, so it was just really cool to experience. And I ended up getting hurt my senior year and having to like medically retire. So it just like I got to go to the national championship.
Oh
Like
man, I was there too.
yeah, so it's like one door closes and the Lord just provides another. So it was then that wasn't something I would have been able to experience, and I'm just glad they've been able to kind of continue that momentum even regardless of how this season ended.
That's true. This season was not a good ending for sure.
I was at the Cotton Bowl and I was like, oh gosh.
Oh, man, I was supposed to go, and my flight got canceled.
It's probably a sign. I don't know. But yeah.
So you graduate college. What's kind of the? I mean, obviously you're going from athletics, which you said is like a full time job, and now you're literally into grad school and full time jobs. How has that pivot been, and like where has the Lord been in that too?
Yeah, it's post grad life is hard. Nobody, I feel like people talk about it, and I was like, oh, it's fine. But like, I'm still living in the same apartment that I was last year, but like, all of my friends have moved. So it's definitely a really big adjustment. And I feel like with sports, you've always kind of just been given friends. They've just, that's your common connector. So it's been a lot harder than I thought it would be, but it's also been just a season of like waiting and just like allowing myself to be alone and in the word and just growing with my relationship with the Lord. It's given me a lot of time to kind of reflect too with like how my career ended, because it wasn't like, oh, I met the Lord and everything got better. It's not like one of those typical stories that you hear, testimonies. I ended like very low, I'd say. The last probably 8 to 12 months of my career were just very hard. So it did allow me to kind of just sit in that disappointment and just like reflect and really rely and lean on the Lord. But yeah, I love what I do now. I love my grad school. Like I'm so happy. So it's definitely, I know I'm where I'm meant to be, and the Lord closed certain doors for certain reasons, and it doesn't have to all make sense, but like, you're never going to have the answers to everything, but I feel like my purpose is so much more, and it took a while to realize that, but now I'm like so content and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, looking back is always like way clearer than looking forward.
Hmm.
We had Sean and I had someone on the podcast a while ago, and he said, what did he say? He said the windshield is always like bigger in the rearview mirror or something like that. And he's like, but you only understand what's behind you from looking in the rearview mirror. And I was like, that's it's kind of a bar right there. So I was like, I'll take that.
My dad always said that, like growing up, that's so crazy. Like whenever I'd have a bad swim or just would be disappointment, like he'd just say rear view mirror, like that's it, just move on, pack it up. Shield is bigger.
So my question is like, I always ask people this when they share their testimonies, but what's the one lesson that you would want to share with other people that maybe are where you used to be? And I would want other people to know this.
Yeah, I think definitely the biggest thing that I've learned, like not just through swimming, but just in life in general, like I feel like peace has been my big word, because I did come off of so much disappointment and having so many questions of being like, God, like, what are you trying to teach me in this season? And why did things end the way that they did? I think it's really important that, like, it's not just one thing, but I feel like it's a culmination. But like, our identity was never meant to be earned. Swimming revealed that like where I was placing my worth, God just patiently like rerouted it in him. And I think if I did want an environment that just fostered like my growth as an individual, or at an athlete, I could have gone to another program and gotten all the accolades, but who knows, like, but I wouldn't have been pushed to grow as a person or even in my faith. So he does tell us who we are through our successes and our mistakes. Like we're still his at the end of the day. And I think that faith doesn't just remove suffering, it gives meaning and just strength within it. like God doesn't erase the injury, the criticism, or just the disappointment that we face from day to day life. Like he meets us in them. And for a long time I had so much built up anger towards like the system that I was in and like the way that things had ended. And in a lot of ways I did feel like I failed, but despite all of the like it forced me to look inward a lot and how I show up for myself and others. And swimming, like it did teach me a lot of like self-growth, and that I'm grateful for. And the big thing on peace, like it's if our peace is dependent on everything going right, like that's not peace, you know, like that's control. And for a lot of times, like I'm sure all athletes were very type A. Like I'm very much a person that needs control, and just letting God to like teach me to be just steadfast in uncertainty, because like true peace comes from surrendering to him. And knowing that now, like experienced so much peace in my life, and I've been able to like actually be where my feet are and just be present and like truly surrender. I've never felt so like joyful in my life. I still experience, you know, like all the hardships and everything. Like nursing school's hard. It's just it's like a newfound sense of joy that just like can't be taken away. You know. Sorry, that was.
And I love that. That's it right there. See, now you're dropping the bars.
Thanks.
So I always ask this one too, but what's like life verse or maybe just a verse that's sticking to you right now that kind
Yeah.
of is really important to you?
Yeah, so definitely James 1 through 2, or chapter 1, verses 2 through 4 was definitely a big one when I swam. I would just like, I got to the point where I would just repeat it in my head, and I like, it just became like a really big grounding thing for me. And it's consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, wherever you face trials of many kinds. It's like the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And like it just becomes such a grounding for me, because I don't know, it just like it allows me to just stay present in the moment and know that like all this suffering that I'm going through, and like anytime I face something hard, like I know that it's for a greater purpose, and it's just another like there's a bigger mountain coming. And so it's like if I just stay steadfast now, then like it'll allow me to grow so much more and just be like firmer in my relationship with the Lord and just more rooted. So
Hmm. Man, that's awesome.
mm,
Thank you for coming on and for sharing your story. And I loved hearing all that. There's a lot of lessons in there, a lot I can relate to, and I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to as well.
yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm
Yeah.
honored. I'm glad you thought of me.